Harris Faulkner on Fox News had a back and forth with former New York State Senator David Carlucci that I found very, very entertaining. It's just a great example of a Fox News host having their hypocrisy called out, which is always good to see. And what this is in regard to is the story that has been circulating and Fox News was covering it about how few press conferences Joe Biden presidential news conferences Joe Biden has done in his presidencies. And it's true. He has done very few press conferences. And I would like to see him do more. I think it's great when you engage with the press. But if you're on Fox News and you refuse to talk about other instances that relate to the interaction with / respect for the press, specifically when talking about Trump, then you should have that called out, that you're willing to care about the sanctity and respect and importance of the press and them having information given to them by the president directly on a regular basis and being able to ask and challenge that person who's in a position of power. All that's important, and that gets to the respect of the press. But also, if you're consistent and honest, you would talk about the disrespect and the issues with respect when it comes to Trump and the press. But they never criticize him about that. They just now are concerned with this subject when it's Biden. And I think having fewer press conferences is less bad than calling the press the enemy of the people and demonizing them more than any modern American president. So again, I say, criticize Biden for not having enough press conferences, sure. But let's be consistent and care about the way in which presidents interact with the press across the board. Take a look at this.
President takes shouted questions, meaning that you have to run him down to get a question answered. Is she proud of that? Biden has only held 23 news conferences since taking office more than 2 years ago, far fewer than previous presidents had held by this time.
And by the way, I will note, you'll see, she's letting him speak, and then he starts effectively making the point that I just outlined, and she immediately starts trying to cut him off. It's great.
In their terms. I mean, look at that. Double, triple, quadruple in some cases. Power panel, Gianno Caldwell, Fox News political analyst, and David Carlucci, former Democrat New York State Senator. Great to see you both. Why not take more questions, David? Not the shouted ones.
Well, I think this is an issue. Well, Biden is off the hook, right? He will take it from shoot from the hip. He'll say all types of things that he really means and is endearing. So I think there's obviously the staff is trying to control that as much as possible. But it's a matter of being transparent. And President Biden has been transparent. His team has been transparent and communicating the issues that he's working on. Many times in these press conferences, yes, there's dividing issues that are being asked. And sometimes there just is no right answer. But we look at some of these reports that was done. I was looking at this committee to protect journalists, and they put a report together that showed that Biden, yes, he's done less press conferences, but he's been open and supportive of the press far more than President Donald Trump, who actually said that the media was an enemy of
Whoa. Let's not do any of that.
the American people. So if we juxtapose the two presidents, it's not about the number of press conferences, it's about the quality. And that's what President Biden is doing.
I'm going to think he can't hear me. Gianno.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so one thing I absolutely believe is calling out someone else's stance as hypocritical on its own doesn't mean your stance is correct, right? So doing this segment is not to say purely the narrative that's constantly pushed on Fox News in many different areas is hypocritical, dishonest. Doesn't necessarily mean the opposite view is correct. We have to look at the facts, and it may be more nuanced than that, right? And so here, let me make clear what my stance is. I think Trump is very dangerous to the media, to the press, to democracy. And you can't even compare Biden and Trump in that conversation whatsoever. Separately, if you want to talk about Biden and his press conference number, I think it's a good thing for presidents to get out there and engage with the press and be questioned and be pressed on your positions. So I think Biden should do more press conferences. Now, I recognize strategically why he's not, because he is prone to gaffes for sure. He does struggle in a lot of these communication settings. But as a general rule, I think president should. And so because he has such a low number, he should. But I'm able to, number one, not be biased on that, depending on who it is. And number two, recognize honestly, it's disingenuous to really even, when talking about respect for the press or anything like that, compare Trump and Biden. Not that that directly was being done other than the numbers thing, but you would definitely see, as you saw from the response there from Harris Faulkner, and likely what the other correspondent was going to jump in and say, the refusal to recognize how the guy they love just was a disaster for our media world, and again, enemy of the people and all of that. So hypocrisy is always important to call out. As I said, though, it's also important in a vacuum to have the correct stance separate from someone else's stance being dishonest. Let me know what you think of all that. Luke P. Beasley on Twitter.